Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
8 minutes after 8, welcome to the Forum at 8 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Well, on Tuesday, I made reference to an article, an email that's been circulating about the allegations on what happened in Marikana and the involvement of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. The article is headlined, Marikana Massacre, All This to Protect an Oligarch. And it goes on just to make a whole lot of allegations. So, this morning then, we are very fortunate to have in our studios Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa to come and respond to some of these allegations, but also just give us a perspective of what happened at Marikana. What is his view about Marikana? Mr. Ramaphosa, I thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Xolani. It's good to be with you and to have your listeners listening.
And thanks indeed for your time. Firstly, I must start with this article because, and you know, I'm just going to read the first paragraph for our listeners to understand what the article says. It starts off by saying, amidst all the confusion after the shooting of 44 protesting miners at Lonmin's Marikana Platinum Mine in South Africa, we should not lose sight of the astonishingly simple underlying issues. We are told the workers are demanding that their wage be raised to 12,500 Rand per month, but the workers claim their salary is already at this level. They say they are subcontracted by a company owned by billionaire South African oligarch Cyril Ramaphosa. He only pays them 5,400 or less and pockets the rest. I would like us to start with this allegation. It's a serious allegation. Do you own a company that is taking money from the workers?
Well, it is a serious allegation and quite a sensational one for that matter. Of course, the truth is we do not, Shanduka does not, or nor do I own a company that's involved in labor broking, because that's precisely what the allegation is. So the only involvement we have with Lonmin is that we're a shareholder, and a shareholder who invested 300 million, and the 300 million, which is completely underwater, it's almost lost because the value at which we invested has really substantially gone down. And we have no other involvement with Lonmin, and we do not do labor broking. We do not have a company that does that type of thing. And it is something that we would never do. Why would we go and rob workers and form a company like that and take money from the company and pay them half of what the workers should be getting? We would never do something like that, and it's completely outrageous.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about your involvement with Lonmin. You own about 9% of Lonmin as Shanduka. But there's an allegation also made in the very same article about how you came to own that 9%. Apparently, Lonmin paid a lot of money in order for you to be on board.
Lonmin did what you could call an empowerment deal some years ago, where it had a number of entities that were shareholders in the BEE structure called Ingwala. And the workers themselves were part of that structure. And when the financing arrangement were a bit difficult, we saw an opportunity to get into the boots of those empowerment entities. We invested 300 million of our own money. Then Lonmin did a vendor financing arrangement for us to be part of the deal, which in the end, the whole deal was worth 2.8 billion Rand. Now, a vendor financing arrangement is very common in all structures. For instance, in Shanduka itself, we vendor financed a group of women entities to be part of the shareholding structure of Shanduka. We financed them. And there's an interest charge that goes with that. Similarly, in Lonmin, after we paid the 300 million, we were financed to a tune of 2.5 billion. And it's as good as going to a bank. So the interest rates are bank-related. There's nothing like a sweetheart deal that we got. And we then paid out the number of other black entities that were part of this structure, including the workers. The workers who were part of that initial BE structure were paid out substantial amounts of money when we bought in. And our commitment has also been that we want to do another BEE structure for the workers, so that the workers must also be equity players in the company that they work for. And a community entity is also part of the Lonmin Empowerment.
I'm going to come back to the comment you made, because you say that the 300 million rand is under the water, effectively all down the drain at the moment.
Indeed.
I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But this article, together with Julius Malema, among others, have then said 34 miners were killed to protect your asset. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's not to protect our asset, because for all intents and purposes, I mean, you could say that that money is lost. And it's the money that we invested, and indeed that has gone underwater. And we accept it as such, because that's the risk that every investor takes when you invest money. Now, the killing of the 34 miners is something that is deeply regrettable, and I have regretted it, and I felt deeply saddened by it. And the one time I was as saddened as I have been now was after the 1987 Great Miners' Strike, when 10 workers were killed during that whole struggle to get mine workers to earn a decent wage. And this time I've been as depressed as that.
But the impression created here is that if it wasn't Cyril Ramaphosa's asset, who is a high-ranking ANC member, who is connected, a well-known business person in South Africa, the workers would not have died. They died simply because it was your asset that they were defending.
But that is really untrue. I mean, there are other shareholders as part of the Lonmin shareholding structure. The IDC, which is government-owned, is part of the shareholding entity, and a number of others, the PIC and many others. So could you say that all those workers died to protect those assets? And I think it's quite a ludicrous type of allegation to make. It isn't true. This situation that we have now, sad as it is, could have happened at any given time. And it so happens that because I'm involved as a shareholder, I tend to be the highest tree that catches the fiercest wind, and it can't be true.
But are you surprised that you're the highest tree that catches the wind? Because you've been involved in the mining industry for many years. You led the NUM, and people are saying that you, of all the people, should know the conditions and should have acted to prevent what happened in one way or the other.
The conditions that workers are exposed to in the mining industry are not yesterday's creation. The mining industry, we must all remember, has been the repository of exploitation and oppression and apartheid in our country. And it spanned over hundreds of years. And to eradicate those type of conditions is not an overnight type of thing. It will take time. And steps have now been taken. And all many of us are saying is that Marikana must definitely be the turning point for this industry. It must change the landscape of how things are done, how workers are treated, how workers are accommodated, workers are paid, and indeed the collective bargaining process must also change. And in some ways, it will also change mining methods. It needs also to address this whole issue of the migratory labor system. The Deputy President, Kgalema Motlanthe, is already on record as saying we need to change it in such a way that it is put on an international benchmark type of footing, like they have in Australia. The mines in Australia are out in the outbacks of Australia, and they have workers who live near those mines in bachelor accommodation, but they go home regularly. And I believe that too can be possible in our own mining industry as we break this hold that the migratory labor system has had on us. And in a way, with the Marikana living conditions situation, is that mine workers, collectively including their unions, are a victim of their own success. We campaigned quite strongly in the 80s that the migratory labor system must be done away with and the hostels must be done away with. That's precisely what is happening now. The hostels are being done away with, but as that process is underway, another social ill emerges, which is squatter living, and the companies themselves obviously have a lot to do. I'm on record as saying mining companies have not lived up to the conditions or the prescriptions that are set out in the
charter.
mining charter. They haven't.
But significant shareholders like yourselves, then what are you doing to ensure that they live up to the mining charters?
All mining companies, including Lonmin, will tell you that they've got plans underway. They are already doing a lot of things. As it comes to Lonmin, in another 18 months' time, all the hostels will have been transformed into single living or family accommodation. So all those hostels that Lonmin used to have will have been transformed. The problem, though, is that as you transform them, you then begin to displace other workers who then opt for the living out allowance. And they say, I would rather make my own arrangements. And in that regard, mining companies as well as government need to have a collaborative effort to make sure that this success that has been achieved is not turned into a social evil. In the end, the mining companies need to accommodate each one of their workers in single accommodation.
The issue, though, at least at Lonmin, is that people are saying Lonmin should never have been surprised about it. In fact, Lonmin's own sustainability report highlighted some of these issues. Were you surprised when you saw this?
No, the sustainability report did raise this issue. And as I'm saying, Kolani, it's been a process of doing too little, too slowly, and in this case, too late. And this affects all of us. And I took heart from what the president said, that rather than be pointing fingers, let us find ways of acting together to do something about this so that a Marikana situation never, ever happens in our country again.
Let me go back to the point you made earlier about your investments in Marikana, that at the moment they're under the water.
Yeah.
Are you considering pulling out?
No, we're not considering pulling out. I think there is a commitment, unless our board says, this is an investment that we should write off, but I don't believe so. There is value in trying to turn this lemon into lemonade. There is something of value.
But what's wrong with the asset? Because people that have assessed the asset are saying that in the long term, it's actually a good asset. Lonmin is a good asset.
Well, it is a good asset. It's got a very good ore body, but the cost structure has just been rising, and the settlement that has now been reached is going to put pressure on the costs of the company, and the pricing of the product now is at its lowest level. The world economy is not helping in this, and largely because platinum producers are price takers. They don't make the price. It would have been different if they made the price, but they take price, and you're dependent on all that and the costs.
I spoke to Professor Adam Habib a little earlier on, and he says, but why? Why do platinum producers take price? We're the only one. We produce about 80%. We can dictate the price.
It is easy to say you can dictate the price, but in the end, in South Africa alone, there are quite a number of producers. Lonmin, Amplats, and Impala are the key ones, but there are other smaller producers, and some of them are new entrants in the industry. They are BE shareholders, because if you're going to make the price, then you've got to be able to sometimes stop production. And when you stop production, it has an impact on your workers. Because, like for instance, De Beers in the past used to produce diamonds, and sometimes it would stop and stock those diamonds and hold back from supplying the market to push the price up. And if you were to do that also in platinum, you may force the consumers themselves to find alternative ways. So you've got to obviously try and maximize the price that you can get, but at the same time not to kill the goose that lays the golden egg.
You see, it's interesting you say that because part of the criticisms against your involvement with Lonmin is really that what is expected out of a black capitalist?
Yes.
Are we expecting something different? By way of example, there are so many emails that have come through about Cyril Ramaphosa buying a bull for 18.5 million, or bidding for a bull for 18.5 million, while people are hungry out there.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, the criticism on this bull have been flying around, and it's something that I regret. It is, I participated in an auction, and where I did put a bid, and that was a mistake on my part. It was a mistake. In the past, some people may recall that I was accused it was alleged that I had bought a car, a Maybach worth 3 million rand. I
Yeah.
responded quickly because I did say that it would be a mistake to do something like that. And this time, I regret it. It was a mistake to even put up my hand to do so. And I've been chastised by some of my good comrades, and even before they chastised me, I did admit that that was a mistake.
Why was it
and
a
I
mistake?
regret. No, I regret it because I mean it is an excessive price in the sea of poverty. I belong to a community, and it was one of those moments when I was blindsided, and I regret it, and I apologize to people who have felt offended by it. And so I'm humble enough to say so.
Sure.
But the damage has been done, and I will live with it, and I accept that it is a mistake that has happened. But putting that aside, I mean, I've never, in my entire life, I spent 9 years with mine workers, serving them and working for them. And in those 9 years, I've always championed their interests. And part of the successes that we now have in the mining industry were achieved during those years when mine workers stood firm and united in achieving their goals. And it's something that pleases me, but Marikana obviously has put a blemish, quite a bit of a blemish on that, on the collective bargaining system and all that. And Vavi was absolutely correct yesterday in saying that the Marikana wage settlement is a very dangerous precedent. And I agree with that. It is a dangerous precedent because it means that the collective bargaining system in the mining industry has actually been, torn apart. And
But what were the options? You living with a situation where 42 days of a strike, possibility of job losses, 46 lives have been lost.
Yeah.
You needed to be pragmatic.
Yeah. In that regard, pragmatism was called for, and Lonmin itself could not opt for drastic options like dismissing workers. It could never do so. So a settlement had to be reached, but it is a settlement that sets a very, very bad and dangerous precedent. That now we've reached a stage where if workers complain about anything, they can opt out of the regular institutionalized collective bargaining system and get what they want. And the other important thing, of course, is that we need, moving forward, to remove violence, the use of violence in collective bargaining. And I've been surprised by this report in COSATU, or commissioned by COSATU, which says that workers now say that it is better to use violence.
Because of waning solidarity. They're saying that it's an easier way
Yes.
to get your demands because there isn't any more solidarity, but also there's a lack of trust in the NUM and other union representatives.
Marikana should be a turning point for unions as well. They need to increase trusts in themselves, in their structures, in their leaders. I think there have been quite a number of gaps, and those gaps need to be looked at. And the union, the NUM itself, does need to use Marikana as a mirror to look at themselves more closely to see what they can do to reinvigorate their own union and to change the way things are
How do
done.
investors see South Africa after Americana? In fact, I was before you answer, because I was at dinner where the diplomats were speaking, and somebody was saying, well, in fact, an ambassador from Brazil was saying, for a while the Brazilians thought South Africa was stable, but Marikana happened, and people started saying, hey, but wait a minute, what is happening in South Africa? What are they saying to you?
There are concerns. I don't think we can run away from the fact that there are concerns in the investor circles about where the situation is. But I don't think they are irreparable concerns. I mean, these are explainable problems. We can explain it. We can put it into context. And in the end, Marikana will be, in investors' terms, will be a blip. So we can explain, we can go out there and put the case for our country, because by all intents and purposes, South Africa is still a great destination for investors. That is precisely the message that we are putting out there, and saying that come and invest, your money is safe. We've got a very, very good overall regulatory environment in financial services and in every way. So I think we can explain what has happened.